Body positivity and fat acceptance has been a hot topic for quite a while now, and it's been on my mind lately, so I wanted to share my thoughts because I have a lot of thoughts. I feel like this is one of those topics like #MeToo, where the loudest voices on the internet are also the most extreme. We have the Nicole Arbors of the world.
Fat shaming. Who came up with that? That's fucking brilliant. Yes, shame people who have bad habits until they fucking stop. And they complain, and they smell like sausages. Fat shaming is not a thing. Fat people made that up. That's the race card with no race.
Yeah, but I couldn't fit into a store. That's discrimination.
No. That means you're too fat and you should stop eating. Everybody just needs to make more sense.
And then we have the Sonali Rashatwars of the world.
I am here today to talk about why fat phobia is not a sexual preference. If just upon hearing that statement, you ask yourself, actually, it's okay to not be attracted sexually or physically to fat people, or not wanting to date fat people doesn't make me fat phobic, well, we might need to talk about that.
Body positivity is not black and white, and I think there's a healthy middle ground that gets overlooked. First, I want to go over the points of agreement I have with fat-positive activists. I don't have a problem with fat people existing and being confident in themselves and expressing no desire to lose weight. If you're plus-sized and content with your body, good for you. What someone chooses to do with their own body is their prerogative. I agree that fat shaming is cruel and unhelpful. Some people do respond well to tough love, but numerous studies show that shame and ridicule aren't conducive to weight loss. I agree that health status and fitness level have nothing to do with morality. Your weight does not determine your worth or value as a human being. There's absolutely no correlation between body size and generosity or compassion. I agree that thin does not equal healthy. Someone can achieve a thin, fit physique on a keto diet, for example, and then drop dead of a heart attack at 38. As a society, we should really shift our focus away from weight itself because it's not an adequate measure of health. What's unfortunate for people with larger bodies is that a fat person's non-ideal eating habits are on display, whereas a thin person's unhealthy habits are concealed. For that reason, people who are overweight and obese are often mistreated and not taken seriously by medical staff. General practitioners barely require any training in nutrition, so they often recommend weight loss to their patients without providing actual helpful tips and resources. And lastly, body size is not a predictor of work ethic. There's this pervasive stereotype that fat people are lazy, so they often face hiring discrimination, even for jobs that don't require physical activity. Also, plenty of fitness instructors I've noticed have reported that their heavier clients are stronger and put a lot more effort into their workouts than their thin clients. Now, here's where I find myself diverging from some of the more vocal fat acceptance advocates. They frequently bring up this concept of concern trolling, referring to people who come on their pages offering unsolicited advice and arguing with them under the guise of concern for their health, when in reality they're just body policing, which they have no business doing. As with accusations of fat shaming, virtue signaling, sometimes these accusations don't really hold water. These things are legitimate, they exist, and they're a problem, but unfortunately, as with many things on the internet, they've been bastardized. For example, if a fat girl posts a picture of herself in a bikini with some generic body-positive caption like, "How to have a bikini body, step 1, have a body, step 2, go to the beach," and someone comes on and comments about how they're glorifying obesity, like, fuck off, dude. Your opinion is unwelcome and just plain rude. But if someone makes a claim that is scientifically inaccurate, or says something outrageous like body positivity isn't for thin people, then I don't think it's fair to categorize all pushback as concern trolling. If you promote the idea of health at every size, which goes directly against the scientific consensus, not all who dissent are trolls. There's a difference between concern trolling and expressing concern about the misinformation being spread and subsequent harm it will cause. It is true that size is not a predictor of health, as there are many thin people who smoke and do drugs and don't exercise or nourish themselves properly. And there are many people who have excess body fat, but generally eat well and exercise. However, this does not negate the fact that having excess body fat, especially around your waist, increases your risk for heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. Even if you're what's considered metabolically healthy and obese, carrying around extra body fat puts pressure and stress on your knees and can cause respiratory issues like sleep apnea. Just as you can be dangerously underweight, you can be dangerously overweight. You can't judge the health status of most people just by looking at them, but it's undeniable that people on the extreme ends of the body fat percentage scale are unhealthy. Another issue I have with certain fat-positive activists is that they are so against fat shaming, yet they shame people for pursuing weight loss or posting before and after photos. I understand that before and after pictures can be toxic. It all depends on the context and the caption. But before and after photos can be a huge source of inspiration, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to lose weight, that is, if you have extra weight on your body. They also claim that complimenting someone on their weight loss is toxic, period. I understand that commenting on someone's weight is generally inappropriate. Like, first of all, not all weight loss is intentional, so don't make assumptions. And second, they could have lost that weight in an unhealthy manner, and praise just reinforces their disordered eating. But if someone is sharing the results of their healthy lifestyle change, we should absolutely celebrate their success. If this makes some people out there insecure, that is on them. That's the irony, is that some of these fat-positive activists who claim to love their body and be so happy and content in their own skin are so upset when another person decides to lose weight. Like, if you're genuinely content with your size, why does it bother you so much? The biggest problem I have is the way they present fat acceptance as the only antidote to diet culture. This is a false dichotomy. You can achieve a healthy physique without unhealthy restriction. They insist that diets don't work, failing to acknowledge the difference between fad diets that lead to yo-yo dieting and legitimate, sustainable lifestyle change. They interpret statistics showing that most diets do not produce long-term results as weight loss is completely hopeless, rather than maybe our society is going about weight loss in the wrong way. They also present restriction as this dirty word, when restriction is not inherently a bad thing. It depends on what, why, and how you're restricting. If someone with a genetically bigger build is restricting their calories because they want to look like Alexis Ren, we can all agree that that is unhealthy. But if someone wants to cut out sugar and oil because they want to look and feel their best, that's fine. In their rejection of diet culture, they tend to put this hyper-focus on anorexia and bulimia, when binge eating disorder is more common than anorexia and bulimia combined. BED is a mental disorder that shouldn't be conflated with simply overeating, but overeating, absent of any classifiable eating disorder, can still produce negative health outcomes. Considering 1/3 of the US population is obese, the objective reality is that more people overeat than undereat, and obesity-related disease and death is way more prevalent than anorexia and bulimia. I'm not saying this to downplay the toxicity of diet culture. I'm only saying this as a response to fat-positive activists who downplay the dangers of excess body fat. It's important to note, though, that while obesity is far more prevalent, it is not more dangerous than anorexia. Obesity shortens lifespans, often by over a decade, but anorexia tends to affect young people and can end a life fat activists convey this message that Mental health is this entirely separate entity from physical health. Like, these things go hand in hand. What's good for the body is also good for the brain. Meat and dairy, refined sugar, and processed, fried, fatty food is going to make you feel like shit physically and mentally. Exercise gives you endorphins and boosts your mood, whereas laying in bed for too long makes you feel drained. I do want to note that mental health is not black and white. You can be physically healthy and mentally ill. But my point is, eating that donut in the name of mental health is not always good for your mental health. It can be, especially if you're recovering from anorexia or orthorexia. But there's a fine line between self-care and self-destructive behavior. A lot of times, self-care means self-discipline. It's finding that balance between self-discipline and indulgence. They claim that the true epidemic is not obesity, it's fat phobia. While I agree that we should strive to improve our treatment of others in society, we should also strive to improve our food system, which will in turn drive down the rates of obesity. To suggest that talking about the obesity epidemic as if it's a problem is the problem is backwards. Clearly, fat shaming is not the solution, but denying that obesity is a problem at all is also not a solution. Yes, the stress caused by weight stigma and yo-yo dieting does contribute to negative health outcomes, but we can fight these things without deluding ourselves and others into thinking that excess body fat is not harmful. They position their cause as a social justice movement demanding liberation, all the while inhibiting people from achieving true liberation by adopting a healthy lifestyle. Insisting that it's impossible to lose weight and keep it off without sacrificing your mental health and living this life of deprivation. But there is a way to lose weight sustainably. It's just that the right information on how to maintain a healthy weight is buried under a mountain of bad information. Again, presenting it as accept your fatness or succumb to diet culture is a false dichotomy. There are two additional options. Number one, you can accept yourself as you are and promote a message of worth at every size, while acknowledging that you're not exactly the picture of health. Or two, you can embark on that journey to better health, choosing not to succumb to diet culture, but to educate yourself on how to eat in a way that nourishes your body and mind. And lastly, what inspired this video was the hot take that body positivity is not for thin people. Excuse me? Do I really need to explain why this is fucked up? This is the epitome of the oppression Olympics. Your struggle with body image is illegitimate because that person over there has it worse. It's like when Republicans dismiss the very real concerns of poor people in America by bringing up starving children in Africa. You can't be poor if you have an iPhone. There's a way to convey the fact that larger bodies are more marginalized without saying that body positivity isn't for thin people. The body positivity movement is for anyone who has struggled with body image issues. I will say though, that all these drop-dead gorgeous models who meet society's ideal beauty standards need to chill with the hashtag BOPO. Like, no one fucking cares about your 3 little stretch marks. You're not that inspiring. Okay, so you may be wondering, what exactly is my position? Should body positivity include fat acceptance? I think body positivity can mean different things for different people. People prioritize and value different things in life, and health and fitness is not an imperative for everyone. We shouldn't judge someone's worth based on their health status. To me, body positivity means fueling my body with mostly whole plant foods and going for a run a couple times a week and doing yoga every day. It means forgiving myself if I skip a day of yoga, but not letting myself skip more than 2 days. It means occasionally indulging, but not overeating. To somebody else, body positivity might mean eating fruits and vegetables and exercising, but accepting their fatness. Some people value the pleasure of eating dessert and having a glass of wine every night more than they value having a flat stomach. Generally speaking, body positivity should mean not policing other people's bodies. What someone decides to do with their body is their business. Body hair, body fat, weight loss, tattoos, piercings, plastic surgery, you do you. Promoting veganism, though, should not be conflated with policing other people's food choices. Animals deserve bodily autonomy and respect just as you do. I agree that we should avoid speaking about food in a moralizing way because it can trigger disordered eating. But animals and their secretions should not even be considered food. And once you're aware of the horror and violence that takes place in these industries, it's perfectly rational and healthy to feel guilty about consuming them. I think the body positivity movement has a tendency to push body love and positivity onto people who are not conventionally attractive, and try as they might, they just can't delude themselves into believing they're hot shit. And that's where the concept of body neutrality comes in. You don't have to love your body to accept your body and live a happy life. A great introduction to the concept of body neutrality is this video by Kara Kamos, which I'll link below. To clarify, I don't have a problem with fat acceptance or fat positivity in and of itself. I have a problem with fat positive activists sharing scientifically inaccurate information. Health is a science. If you eat mostly whole plant foods and exercise regularly, you're going to fall within a healthy weight range. Your set point may be a bit higher than someone else's because we all have different genetics, but scientifically, you're not going to carry a significant amount of excess weight eating fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds. I'm going to link to an older video I made that goes into more depth about human health and nutrition, specifically how to increase your health span rather than just your lifespan. Modern medicine has increased average lifespans, but many people suffer in their later years due to poor lifestyle habits. We view things like dementia and joint pain as an inevitable part of the aging process, but science says otherwise. Be sure to check it out because it's old and doesn't have a lot of views, but it has a lot of good info. You don't have to be the pinnacle of health and fitness to be healthy or happy, but we should at least be honest about what the scientific literature says. If you are relatively healthy in an unhealthy society, you're not exactly at your optimal level of wellness. In the westernized world, average is overweight, and not just a little overweight, but significantly overweight. Now the question is, why? We can't blame individuals for their lack of willpower because human nature hasn't fundamentally changed over the past 100 years. We have to blame the system. It's cruel to target individuals as a drain on our healthcare system, rather than our food system and big pharma. To tackle this issue, we need systemic change. What this looks like is providing only healthy whole plant foods in public schools and hospitals, subsidizing fruits and vegetables, not animal products and refined sugar, restricting advertisements for processed food, similar to measures taken to reduce smoking, and eradicating food deserts. We have to recognize that capitalism is the cause of the obesity epidemic, as the free market creates food deserts and allows lobbyists to influence public policy. Our food system has become a fucking cash grab where industries profit from making food more addictive. And then, of course, the pharmaceutical industry profits off of keeping people sick. Capitalism also makes it extremely challenging to maintain a healthy lifestyle as obesity correlates with low socioeconomic status. It's challenging to lose weight regardless of class, but we have to acknowledge that a healthy lifestyle change is more accessible to someone like Adele than to the average working class American. The poverty trap plays a significant role in the obesity trap. Just like rags to riches stories, successful weight loss stories can be inspiring, but they shouldn't discount the need for structural change. I hereby acknowledge my thin privilege. Thanks to my parents and my genetics, I've never had to struggle with my weight, so eating intuitively comes very easily to me. Feeding myself well doesn't require strong willpower. I can only imagine that the process of rewiring your brain to crave healthy foods rather than junk food is an uphill battle, especially if you're prone to addiction. Another reason capitalism is to blame for the obesity epidemic is that the beauty and wellness industries profit off of our insecurities. Detox teas are only marketable in a world where people lack proper education on nutrition. The reason people fail at dieting and give up is because they're constantly bombarded with contradictory information. If we didn't have various industries polluting the media with lies and propaganda, then people would see that a scientific consensus on what constitutes a healthy diet does exist, and it's not that complicated. In conclusion, we should put detox teas and juice cleanses to rest and stop policing other people's bodies. But we should also acknowledge facts and risks and not mislead people. It is possible to lose weight and maintain a healthy weight without losing your sanity, despite what fat-positive activists will have you believe. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what you think down below. I know this is a very sensitive issue, and I know that I'm a skinny person, so people don't like to hear it out of my mouth. Subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned for next week.
Yo, how when me eat them, I wonder when me eat. When me tell them say me no eat no fish, nah, no meat now. How when me eat them, I wonder when me yam. When me tell them say that I'm a vegan, man. How when me eat them, I wonder when me eat. When me tell them say me no eat no fish, nah, no meat now.